Good evening, Village of Tuckahoe. Welcome to the Wednesday, December 11th Zoning Board of Appeals public meeting. If we could all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. The first item of business is to review the minutes from our last meeting on November 13th, 2019. They have been distributed. Have the members read them? And do we have a motion?
Make a motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The minutes are approved without amendment. We have 4 items on our agenda today. We are going to start with 7 Cottage Avenue. Is the applicant here for 7 Cottage Avenue? This is an area variance to widen their driveway. If the applicant would step forward and state your name, please, that'd be great.
Hi, Lisa Mosconi.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Your husband was here last session and presented the plan to expand the driveway or widen it slightly. Have there been any changes to the plan since then? Okay, thank you. You can take a seat. At last session, we had opened the public hearing. Are there any members of the public here right now who wish to discuss 7 Cottage Avenue? Seeing no members of the public, we will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a motion?
I have a motion.
If you could go for it.
The application for area variance requested by George Mosconi, whose address is 7 Cottage Place, Tuckahoe, New York, Section 23, Block 2, Lot 5, for relief from the following sections of the zoning code: 5-1.2 off-street parking, secret resolution. Based on this application as submitted, this zoning board of appeals finds and determines that 1. The action taken herein is an unlisted action subject to the requirements of SECRA and its implementing regulations. 2. The zoning board of appeals is in possession of all information reasonably necessary to make the determination as to the environmental significance of the proposed area variance application. And 3. That the action taken herein shall not have a significant adverse impact on the environment, and it is declared that a negative declaration is hereby adopted with regard to this action.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Nancy, please call the roll.
Member Garrity.
In favor?
Member Fiore.
In favor.
Member Palladino.
In favor.
Member Jackman.
In favor.
Chairman Scalzi.
In favor.
Applicant resides at 7 Cottage Place in Tuckahoe, New York. Applicant is seeking to enlarge his driveway in the front yard and reconfigure the entrance into his home. To do so, the applicant requires a variance from Section 5-1.2 of the Village of Tuckahoe zoning code. The applicant will require an additional curb cut to complete the work, and the application for the additional curb cut has been submitted to the Department of Public Works and approved subject to the granting of this variance. In reviewing the plans and hearing the applicant at the work session and public hearing, it is clear that the proposed enlargement of the driveway will have no adverse effect on the neighborhood while alleviating some on-street parking. Therefore, recommendation is for the area variances to be granted, as the benefit to the applicant of the area variances outweigh the detriment to health, safety, and the welfare of the neighborhood. The applicant has demonstrated through its submissions and presentation that it has met all aspects of the 5-pronged test to the satisfaction of this board. The granting of the variance herein is granted on the condition that work under such variance be commenced and diligently prosecuted within 1 year of the granting thereof, failing which such variance shall become null and void.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Nancy, please call the roll.
Member Garrity.
In favor?
Member Fiore.
In favor.
Member Palladino.
In favor.
Member Jackman.
In favor.
Chairman Scalzi.
In favor. Congratulations. Thank you very much, and good luck. Our second item is going to be a new applicant. It's 22 Warren Are the applicants here? And if you would step forward and please describe your project, introduce yourselves and describe. Yes. They're adjourned, yeah.
Good evening. My name is Craig Deanna. I live over at 22 Warren Avenue. And we lived in this house since 2000 for about 19 years now. And we're looking to make a modest extension in the back of our house. Just one section just to even it out with the balance of the house. It's only 3'6" out for the full width of it, 2 stories high. Keeping in style with the adjacent homes. Not going beyond our current footprint, just matching up with our current footprint. You can see here where it's located on the back, how it matches up with the adjacent property. And the reason why I'm here is applying for the variance because we're impeding upon the property line on this side, but we're matching the existing property line where a house already sits.
Well, just think we need to clarify, to be specific. You are going outside the current footprint of the home. However, you're not going outside the lines
That is correct, yes.
on the side.
Yes.
Thank you.
The main reason for adding this extension to our house is just, quite frank, we've been in the house for about 19 years now. We're looking for a little bit more living room in our kitchen and upstairs for the bathroom. We plan on staying in the house for another 20, 25 years as far as I know, and just looking for a better living condition. So it's really just home improvements is why we're doing it.
Okay.
I'm not certain what else to offer up, but we really enjoy the neighborhood, and we want to stay here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any questions?
No, it's pretty basic.
No, I think it's a pretty basic bump out that stays in line. I mean, he's having to come in because of the way the houses were built back in the day. He's going straight back from the existing lines, and not by a very large amount.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing.
I make a motion. Open public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing's open. Is there anyone here who would like to discuss 22 Warren? Seeing no one from the public hearing, we will keep this open until next month, at which case, if there's no further information, we'll probably be in a position to vote on your application. So thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate it. Thank you. And with that, we'd like to move to our next agenda item, which is 14 Columbus Avenue. It's a special use permit for a new fitness studio.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. Louis Campana, architect. My clients are seeking your approval for a special permit for a sports and health facility, which will be located at 1416 Columbus Avenue. This location was previously occupied by Pino's Palette, and prior to that, up until about 2015, it was occupied by Curves, which was a sports and health facility. The business is family owned and operated. It's a It's a boutique one-on-one training facility. It would be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on a daily basis, and they offer one-on-one training throughout that time. On Mondays and Wednesdays during the week, they offer group classes with a maximum of 12 participants. That will also occur on Saturday and Sunday mornings, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., and then another from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., both Saturday and Sunday group sessions. So at no point during the week, except for the group sessions, will this space be occupied by more than 3 to 4 people.
What time will the group session be during the week?
7 p.m. to 8 p.m., yes. And weekends,
Right.
7 to 9.
So just to consolidate that, so
Yeah.
on average during the week, you're going to have 3 people at the property involved
That's correct.
in this fitness session. Twice a week, 7 to 8, you'll have up to 13 people, including the instructor.
Correct.
Thanks.
Same goes for Saturday, Sunday.
Any further questions?
From what I understand, there's no requirement for parking.
Correct, Mr. Chair. This was, this applicant appeared before the Planning Board's work session last week, and Planning Board has no issues with it. They sent a recommendation to you guys with no parking requirements.
Okay.
Again, which is odd, because normally we have parking requirements, but it's just such little usage that they felt it wasn't necessary.
Can I ask how they're going to fit 12 in there? Because it's a small space. Would you mind getting the trainer up just to explain?
Go.
Sorry, I think you mentioned the trainer who's going to be working with the clients is here today. Is it possible we could ask him a few questions about the use of the facility?
Sure.
So,
Definitely.
thank you. If you just state your name and address.
Joe DeMasi, head trainer at the facility.
All right, Joe, I just want to ask a couple questions because, as you mentioned during the work session, you're going to have 3 people in there most of the time, which, sounds great. It's not a huge crowd. You're not using a lot of parking. Wonderful. My concern is when you have 12 people, and I'm looking at your plan now, I mean, you've got a lot of machines in here with fairly narrow, not narrow, but, you have kind of your path around the gym. How are you going to get 12 people in here concurrently?
Because we actually use part of the turf and we use the machines for functional training. So it's not just in one specific area. So we're going to have some people on machines, some people will be on the turf, and some people will be on the other side, kind of evenly distributed. That's kind of how our model works. So not everybody's kind of clumped into one spot, and we kind of have it on a timed circuit. So they'll be on there for about a minute or so, then everybody kind of rotates, then kind of different sections, things like that.
Because you have like 18 by 9 in the middle area, which is,
Sure.
I guess, 6 people or so side by side if they're,
like
okay.
3 or 4, give or
Okay.
take. So just to kind of evenly, we would never have it so bunched up because then somebody.
Okay,
would
so
jump.
they're going to be kind of roaming around the outside of the facility. Thank you for clarifying
And
that.
you had mentioned in the work session that you own and operate a facility now. Maybe talk about this size space for the space you have and your experience.
Sure. It's been owned and operated for about 3 years now. In terms of the space where we are now, there's a lot of extra room that's kind of unnecessary in a sense, where there's extra bathrooms and a big work desk area where not necessarily utilized. Where this is the area that we're moving into now is the same square footage that I use at the current facility, where there's a turf area and machines. So this is actually just what I use now, just in this particular spot. So it's actually a much better spot. The other place has almost more extra, which I don't necessarily use. So it's almost identical from where I am to here.
Great. And your current facility is located where? And
In Eastchester.
in Eastchester. So this will be the same clientele essentially, or
Same following, yes.
you'll bring.
Absolutely.
How long have you been operating in Eastchester?
Over 3 years. And
Thank
I've
you.
been personal training for over 15. I was at New York Sports Club prior, so the following is, I'm very lucky in that regard. So, and it's not far from where we are, so just literally coming right down the hill. So it's good.
And I just want to confirm that, we talked in the work session about making sure that you come into us with the sessions you want and not having to expand later. You guys are okay with the kind of 2 sessions in the morning, Saturday and Sunday as well?
100%. And
Okay.
if nobody signs up for that, we don't run the class.
Okay, no, we just want to make sure. So that's,
Absolutely.
all right.
100%.
I don't have any further questions.
All right. No further questions.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One more. Just one, I forgot. Is there going to be shower facilities there or no? Okay.
No.
No, okay.
All right. Thank you very much. I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing. Do I have someone to make a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The public hearing is opened on 1416 Columbus Avenue on the special use permit for a new fitness studio. Are there any members of the public here? Seeing no members of the public, we will keep it open until next week. And hopefully, barring any new information, we'll be able to have a decision for you next month, excuse me, at our next meeting. So appreciate you guys coming in. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And now we're to the last item on the agenda, 145 Main Street, seeking a special use permit for a dog training and boarding center. The applicant could come to the microphone.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm Leonard Brandis, representing Instinct Dog Behavior and Training Center. Take the mic with me for a second. We are proposing to convert the existing PTI industrial facility, which was doing machine shop work, basically making specialty equipment and tools for that space. They had over 30 employees there. We're going to reduce this down to about 4 to 6 employees on a daily basis, where there will be employee, actually when I mentioned it's overnight, that there will be somebody there. It's not being left, the dogs aren't left alone. There is somebody there all 24 hours a day. The facility itself, the entry is going to have, we're going to maintain only 3 parking spaces. They had 6, they were using it as 6 and grabbing cars in there. We want this not for our employees, but for people to drop off their dogs. I have a letter we're going to give it out to you also. We gave it to the planning board. I didn't realize we really should give it to you as well. We are going to basically have people coming in for drop-offs. There's about 26 a day total, between stops, between coming, dropping off, and taking off. So it's 26 people going in and out during the day and the evening. So that's a total of 26. So it's like 13 in the morning, 13 in the evening for people who want to pick up their dogs. The dogs will we'll tell you more about that with the owner. The dogs themselves, the building itself is over here. It's an industrial building. The back of the building, as you can see, facing the residential, only has 1 story that's facing the residential area. The other 2 floors are below grade. The dogs themselves in the facilities will be mostly kept within the lower levels. So in terms of the boarding facility itself. And the reason for the boarding is because most of the training that we're doing, the dogs do need to stay with us for at least a week at a time to get the training systems that they're doing. It's a true training center, not just a facility for people to leave their dogs and go on vacation. So there's a little bit more. We do have the top floor where we do have, in the back area with the residential, we have our veterinary behaviorist office. We do have some training sessions over here, and basically bathrooms for our employees, and mostly the employee people are up here on this 3rd floor. But the dog areas are going to be, the training areas and the dog facilities, the majority is on the first floor itself.
If I could just clarify with you, so the majority of your dogs are going to be boarded almost 2 floors underground.
Yes.
Essentially, and then the remaining dogs will be boarded 1 floor underground.
Yes.
Okay. The only use of the top floor, which has walls that would be shared with the local community for purposes of noise or dogs barking or things of this nature, is only the 3rd floor, which is unoccupied by any stalls or.
Well, there are training there. There may be puppies with the trainers up here in the front.
But the dogs are not lodging
They're
on
not
that floor.
lodging. No, they're not lodging. In fact, the puppies go home with the trainers at night.
Okay.
They do their puppy training. So they're not kept in the areas. But the puppy training is done in this area over here in the front facility.
That's specifically puppies.
For the most part. Am I correct on that? Yeah. They go home with the trainers, so they're.
Okay.
So in terms of that, we are trying to control noise in terms of for the community. We don't want noisy areas, so that's why being below ground for these 2 areas certainly helps a lot in terms of keeping the noise. And it was a commercial facility prior to this, where it did have a lot of employees and a lot of noise that people never even knew noise was being made. So it does work as a building. It is a solid brick building. So
With regard to the environment within the building and everything else like that, is it self-contained?
yes, the building is self-contained in terms of the environment. There will be areas where the dogs can come out. We do have an area that we're adding a door where it was their loading dock, so we're clearing that area out where the dogs can now come out there and play as well. And that area will be closed off from the public. We are putting a fence out there that matches the existing gate, which is full height over there. And the dogs this way can roam around over there and without disturbing the neighborhood.
There won't be, how should I say, any exhaust within, into the neighborhood or anything else like that there?
No.
That-
No, there was existing air conditioning facilities that were, air conditioning facilities that we are using, and we do have specialty systems in there that will be for filtering the air itself within the space. So it has systems that clear the air itself. So we are not making a mess in there. In terms of the dogs' feces and urine, those will be taken care of. The feces will be wrapped and put away and being packaged away and picked up twice a week by the city garbage. That's what they recommended. And then in terms of other facilities, we do our washing. We have continuous washing areas. We're adding floor drains so we can make sure the area stays clean and sanitary. Certainly you have to maintain a clean area so in case a dog gets sick, we don't want other dogs to get sick, so this is all important. So we do maintain a clean space.
Great. Maybe if the applicant can talk a little bit about your background, why you chose to open this type of business, why Tuckahoe, how it may be similar or different than Pause and Play. So
Oh, yeah.
give me the, you know, let us
Yes.
know what you're planning to do here.
Yes, well, so my name is Megan Coriat. I'm a certified professional dog trainer. I started training dogs in 2011, and I earned my certification in 2014. And from 2012 to 2017, I did run a daycare and dog boarding and training facility in Harlem. And I am opening an Instinct franchise location because I have known the owners for many years. I believe in what they're doing. I think they do right by the dogs. I think they do right by owners. And I also think that they're good neighbors where in their current locations.
Is this a large franchise or in just the New York area?
So I will be the third location to open up unless San Diego beats me. And then they've also got a franchise location opening up in Portland next year. So in 2020, they'll go from having 2 locations to having 5, and they're looking to have 5 more franchise agreements signed next year.
But
So
cur-
it's national.
But currently it's New York based, right?
Currently, yes, the original location is in East Harlem.
Thank you.
We had some people asking questions about the vicious dogs. I know we had spoke about this earlier, but I just want to get this so that everyone can see. How do you determine whether or not a dog is vicious for your purposes?
So all calls will go to the Instinct Central calling location. It happens to be located in Nova Scotia. And they're trained, the staff there are trained to take a complete history to really parse out from the owner what's happening and what they need. And from that, they make a recommendation on, whether or not they think that Instinct is the place for their dog, if they need to see a vet behaviorist before they can come in, if they need in-home training, or if they're a good candidate for our board and train programs.
Well,
So if you have a dog that has a history of biting people, that's an animal that's going to be rejected from your program. That won't be an issue for you.
It's true that we will take dogs with a bite history, but not dogs that have bitten numerous people. If they bit and then reattached, if they bit and then slashed, there's a scale. I won't bore you with like the numbers of it, but there is a scale of like marking out all the levels of dog aggression, and we only take the low end of that scale.
Would you mind, maybe let's just take a little step back and kind of a larger scale view of some of the concerns that some of the neighbors expressed, which I think many of the board members also have concerns about it. So maybe let's talk about that and then get down to the animals and exactly how you deal with the animals. But the first of those is the noise issue. And I think we already talked with the architect about the fact that this is a very heavy-duty brick building that was doing heavy machining. There was no noise issues in the past. You're going to be 2 floors underground with most of these animals. They have a 24-hour staff available, correct?
That's correct. There will be a staff member on site 24.
So there's not going to be dogs barking all by themselves at 1 o'clock in the morning.
And it's making the dogs bark, there'll be a staff member there to fix the problem.
Okay. And I want to clarify for any listeners at home that the village has an existing noise ordinance that it is allowed to enforce even on a business that we've approved. So on from the noise thing, the pickup and drop off, I think, is a concern for the board in that you currently, and would you mind putting up the slide with your parking spaces? We have recently approved a pretty large fitness facility across the street from you. There's obviously some traffic issues now, especially with our wonderful construction that's going on in the village currently. I just want to, and I think you need to clarify kind of what you said in the work session, which is this is not willy-nilly drop-off. And if you could take a minute to explain how you coordinate drop-off with these 3 spots so that no one's using the street.
Right. So we have a dog-centered reason for wanting to coordinate drop-offs and pickups, and that is we don't want dogs meeting face-to-face. So we never have a pack of 4 or 5 or 10 dogs rushing into the building at once. That's a stressful situation. So when they call our call center and they make up their appointment for their consultation or their meet and greet or their boarding tour, they have to they can go online to our website and they choose a pick up and drop off time, and there's only one of those at a time because we have one receptionist. So once that spot is taken, it's gone. So we really, and I should say, I went through the numbers at East Harlem, which is the facility that has been operating the longest, and I asked them for their numbers in July, which is peak season for board and train. And they only had on average 6 pickups and drop-offs for board and train dogs per day. And they're scheduled. They're not all at 5 o'clock. You know, there's someone coming in at 5, at 5:30, at 6, like that.
So, and I just want to clarify for the public at home. So you have 3 spots. Those 3 spots are not being used by your employees. They will be parked elsewhere, which we can get to later. These are only for the use of your clients, and there are 3 spots. However, you don't anticipate more than one person showing up at a time because they have this scheduling thing. And then you also have separately, people sometimes will need to stay with their animal based on their training regimen, correct? So you would have someone else using one other of those 3 spots.
Exactly. There might be 2 cars in the lot at the same time because, you know, someone's parked in the one for an hour and then the other one is being used for those very quick pickup and drop-offs.
But you don't ever anticipate using more than your 3 spots, which are located in the property.
Not unless something's not going well, like,
Right.
you know,
Okay.
non-compliant clients or something.
Right. Okay. So, and then lastly, well, not lastly, but onto your parking issue. I think this is actually, especially for the poor residents of our lovely High Street here in the village, and we share their concern in that, you know, it's very tempting, especially for your employees. It's going to be very tempting to pull around that corner and just park on High Street. You know, these folks deal with this a lot, and people then will have to then do their U-turn to get back out onto the main street. And as we mentioned in the work session, you are working on getting parking for all your employees.
We are.
You are. I just want to clarify, and this is my personal opinion. I don't know if the board wants to agree or not, is that we would very much like to see that parking located near to your building so the employees are not, you know, either I have to drive 3 blocks or I can just pull around the corner and park on High Street for the day. And so I think we'd very much encourage, or we'd like to see those spots nearby, which you had mentioned in the letter provided, which will be available to the public if needed, that they are working with the Shiloh Baptist Church, which is just around the corner.
We have to work with someone else, most likely.
Okay. And is that the case, Mike? Okay, so that he's not allowed to turn that into a parking.
Right, there's, the Shiloh Baptist Church does not have a parking lot license, so they're unable to provide.
And they're not able to get a license.
No, they are.
They are. They've
Oh,
opted not to
okay.
apply for it.
I misunderstood. I apologize.
And just as we're on parking, this application was before the planning board, informally. They're in favor of the project, but they would recommend 4 off-street parking spaces that they would need to.
I think we agree, at least in our work session, on that, a number that we'd like to see 4 spots nearby.
Right.
We understand that's a challenge in the village. We empathize.
Yes.
And lastly, I think in, you know, getting back to the other members' concerns, you know, expressing the concerns of the neighbors, I think I'd like to give you an opportunity to kind of discuss how the dogs are going to interact with the surrounding neighborhood. And first of all, let's maybe confirm the dogs in general will not be leaving this property.
That's correct.
Correct. So the vast majority of the dogs will be staying inside the property, exercising in the property, doing their training inside the property. Now, you had explained to us in the meeting there is one exception. I'd like you to clarify how, during those exceptions, what they are, and exactly how you keep members of the community safe while those are going on.
So the exception would be training walks with a certified trainer. So those are one dog with one person who has a respected dog training certification. Dogs who work at Instinct are always double tethered, so they have one way of being tethered, like maybe a flat collar or a martingale collar, and then also a head halter or a chest harness and also a head halter, or, you know, any combination of equipment. So there's 2 things on the dog at one time, because we don't ever want any dogs escaping. A lot of the dogs that we have are afraid. They're afraid of cars or people or rabbits or whatever they're afraid of. So we always want to have them double harnessed so they're not going anywhere. They're with a trainer who is experienced with dogs, who is actively working with the dog on whatever behavior it is that they're working on, whether that's a good heel or pay attention or just relaxed walking with a nice loose leash. And, that's only going to be one, possibly two dogs at a time. If I have two trainers on site working with dogs, it's possible that there would be two, but most likely it's going to be one. So, because the dogs work when they're doing board and train with us, they work with their trainers for an hour a day on whatever the behaviors are. Some of those behaviors are loose leash walking.
Now, of specific concern with this is the fact that you are literally abutting a children's playground.
We will not be going into the
That's what I was going to ask, is if you are okay as part of this approval, is that your dogs are in no way, in any case, no exceptions allowed in the playground or in the park next to the playground?
We would never do that.
Okay.
You don't have to tell us, but
We just
you
need to
can,
have that
'cause we would.
clarified on the record that
That wouldn't be a safe thing for our dogs or possibly for the children.
we understand. We want to make sure the community understands that they are safe and that, we're not going to put anyone in a situation where a child or anyone at the park would have to deal with that.
No.
Thank you.
Any additional questions this time? All right, thank you very much. You can have a seat.
Thank you.
If
Thank
I could
you.
Comment on two things on the application. I think with Member Jackman,
Please.
no dogs, I think our code says there's no dogs allowed in the parks. So that will preclude them from going in the park. Also with the noise ordinance, it says the keeping of any animal or bird, so I guess a bird's not an animal, which makes a noise disturbance that exceeds 15 minutes. So what happens is, if the police department gets a complaint, they'll send an officer over there. They'll sit outside, listen. If the dog continuously barks, or if they hear barking for 15 minutes, then they'll issue a violation. I've prosecuted a lot of these over the years, and that's how they do it.
And that's issued by the police and not by the building department, correct?
Yeah, that's issued by the police department.
Okay, so as the neighbor calls in, there's a dog barking,
Yep.
it's going to get enforced right on the spot every
Yeah,
time they
they'll go right
call.
over there. They'll start timing it. If continuous barking, violation gets issued.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. So we have received two letters on this applicant. One was by Sarah Mangum at 21 South High Street. That has been received and will be put into the public record. We also received an anonymous letter or an unsigned letter as of December 11th on this application. And again, that will be put into the public record. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The public hearing is open. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this applicant? Not seeing anyone from the public here. We will keep the public comment session open until next month's meeting. And
Do we have anything that we wanted her to look into by the next session?
well, I think probably, obviously, clearly the number one thing is parking. So that's what's going to have to be determined and discussed before the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And with that, we can call to end the December 11th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Our next session will be on January 8th. So happy holidays to everyone and enjoy the new year. And we'll see you in January.
Yes. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you, Tuckahoe.